Hey, 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 welcome everybody to the Really Charlie podcast. Today's guest is Mika Marie and Niki Williams. We have another guest on standby, and we're just going to wait. If she comes on, we'll definitely add her to the screen, and that's Linda Hall. A great, great group of guests. And there's one thing that, I want to listen and hear from these guests because they are parents, advocates, and champions for their children and many more other children. So I want to hear their story from A to Z as much as we can put in this podcast within the hour. So, but without further ado, Mika Marie. Sorry, man. Take
Sorry.
some, take some water. You know, I'm sorry I had a bad hair day. Look,
Join the club. Join the club.
so um, my guests today have they're first and foremost parents of autistic children, and they're always trying to do the best they can for their children and other people's children. So I want you to get to learn them, and I also want to bring out some autism awareness. We're gonna try this first show, and then we're gonna try to maintain it and keep it going, maybe monthly, maybe every 2 months or something like that. But we're gonna do the best we can. All right. So,
Sounds good.
Nikki, why don't you give us a little background, a little bio about yourself, and well, wait, before we do that, we got our other guest tuning in. I'm gonna add her to the screen.
Great.
All right. All right. Hold on one second.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to figure out why my camera's not working, so it's taking me a little longer to
Okay.
jump on. Nice to meet everyone. I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna try to log on a different device since my laptop is acting crazy right now. Is that okay?
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
Uh, all
Sorry,
right.
but I wanted to jump on so you didn't think I forgot. I'm here. I'm just trying to
No,
figure it out.
no
Thank
problem.
you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. So, Nikki, why don't we get the show rolling with you and just give us a little bio, about yourself and what you're involved in, and then we'll move on to Mika.
So, started out working in healthcare about 22 years ago. I'm a mom of four, so when my oldest was about 1 year old, I started on the healthcare journey. I have four children now. The oldest is 23, and the other one will be 21. And my daughter is 18, a senior in high school this year. And then I have Michael, my son, who's 10, who is on the autism spectrum. Um, so I've been working in healthcare for quite a while, and when I had Michael, I was working as a nurse, and so I was able to, really tap into the community and become a little bit more proficient in learning about the autism subtypes and how children are impacted, and then the trajectory, the growth that we're seeing.
Okay.
So that has become my mission. I deviated away from mainstream medicine and am now working, more with families with autism and working on their journey, their healthcare journey with their children, which helps the entire family.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Mika, your turn.
Well,
Glad you're
let's
representing with
see.
that T-shirt.
well, I'm not as in depth as Nikki. Nikki was started in the health field. I'm just a parent. I have two sons, one who is 23, and my youngest who will be 15, who is also on the spectrum. Um, I started to get involved, obviously, and learn when my son got his diagnosis. And ever since then, I've been probably my son's biggest advocate. And there's not, how can I say, I've been for friends, I've been there for family, I've answered questions. Nikki's more in depth than I am as far as, in programs and stuff. I was never involved in programs, but if anybody ever needed help, I was always there, and I would talk to anybody anytime I could, and give my experience.
You
That's
helped
good.
me. I reached out to you when my son was diagnosed. I reached out
Yeah.
to Tamika. Tamika and I go way back to being young kids together. And actually, her older son and my oldest son, they were born within a couple of days of each other, and we saw each other in the hospital. And
We
life
sure
brought us
did.
back together after the fact when my son was diagnosed. And Tamika had been vocal on Facebook about her son's diagnosis. And when you get that diagnosis, you're just grabbing for straws, trying to connect with anyone that you can, because, as Tamika will tell you, the prognosis is unknown. When your child gets that diagnosis early on, you just don't know what the future will look like.
So
Right, and
true.
you have to
No.
you have to try. I don't want to say try everything, but you have to learn. You have to learn a lot. You have to talk to others. Her and I spoke a couple times, and you have to learn different methods, different ways, and there's no wrong way, how would I say, to go about helping your child on the spectrum at all. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it does take a village, and it does take parents like Nikki and I, to communicate. Without a couple other
It,
autism moms and dads, I would probably still be lost, even 11
Right.
years
it,
after the diagnosis.
and and with all that said, how do you help yourself with self care? Both of you. What do you do to try to, that there may be a time where maybe you ignore self care. I don't know. It's different individuals, different households. You know, Nikki, how do you deal with self care? As far as just you just in general, or do you just kind of take a deep breath and just say no? I got to be here for my child right now. Suck it up, do what you have to. How do you deal with it?
I think it's a combination of both. Early on, you're being pulled in all directions with service providers and therapies and doctor's appointments, and it doesn't stop. And people will tell you, you have to take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself first, you'll burn out for your kid. And eventually it does happen. So that was advice I didn't take early on. And I was in the midst of raising my three other children at that point. When Michael was diagnosed, the older children were 10, 12, and 14 years old. So I was still running to basketball and carpool and, and trying to accommodate this child who needed a very strict and structured routine. So what I ultimately, learned was that I was burning out very quickly. And fortunately, because of my background, I was able to kind of go into my doctors, advocate for myself and say, hey, I need to be, evaluated and looked at because my stress threshold is, not where it had been. And, from there, they gave me all those tips. You have to work out, you have to take vitamins, you have to eat a diet that is nutritious in order to sustain yourself, because this is a very, very long road. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
I do a
It,
lot
it,
better
it,
now that he's older.
yeah, it took a while
Good.
for you. You have to conform. I'm not say conform your life, but you have to learn to live your life the way that they need to live. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
you have. It's not what you want, and not saying that we take away what we want, but at the same time, we have to understand that they work and they learn a little different, and their everyday activities are not as some others. So we have to learn and adapt, and even that takes a strain on us as parents. Because we're used to, especially when we have older children, there was
Mhm.
another set of routine. Now we have
Yeah.
to flip that whole routine. So now, as he's older, it's like clockwork, and that's
Yeah.
something that took a lot for me because I was just a free spirit, and it took a lot for me to get that structure. And that's one thing that I've learned and I'm so grateful for is that structure that my son has given to me. And
Awesome.
that takes a lot. And trust me, it takes a lot of time to get to that point. A lot of time, a lot of
Yeah.
therapy, a lot of everything. And as far as self-care, sometimes I just take mental health days. A
Hmm.
lot of times, he might go with my mom, or sometimes he just doesn't even want to bother with me either. So,
Yeah.
it happens. And now he's a teenager with autism. So that's even more fun.
Hmm.
But it works
Good.
out in my favor.
Good. Um, I don't know where that background's coming from, but the all right.
I know.
Um, what we're gonna do is hold on. Linda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi,
All
everyone.
right. Okay. All right. The hi. Nice to join us. I mean, nice for you
Thank
to join
you.
us. I really appreciate it. What we were basically talking about is, you know, self care and but what I want to do is kind of backtrack. I really want the audience to know you, the listeners, the viewers to know you. If you can give us a little bio about yourself and your relation to autism, and go ahead.
Well, my name is Linda, born and raised in Massachusetts, well, Taunton, Mass. So I hear the accents and I love it. I'm like missing out, a little homesick. Um, I've been in Cali now for about 16, 17 years now. Um, my oldest daughter, Janai, is now 23. And she was born with cerebral palsy and she has epilepsy as well. So that's where my special needs journey began. And so because of her and her condition, and she's the oldest of four. And so finding things for us to do as a family was always difficult. And,
Yes.
someone was always being left out. And her needs, she has extraordinary needs. Like she's fully dependent on me. And so I wanted to create a space for the whole family that is all inclusive so that we can teach other kids how to interact with our kids who have special needs. Because there's a lot of apprehension. And I think that the apprehension comes from like just not knowing and that fear of the differences. And so from the beginning, what I've done is go into schools and teach kids about the similarities. Like, ask them, like, what do you like to do? And then, well, she likes to do that too. And along my journey, I've met more and more families who are in the same situation, who are in the same need. And we as parents, we need support. We like, as the ladies were talking about, like being able to call another parent and ask questions and listen to their journey and know what they did when they were in that situation, knowing that you're not alone is really huge, because I think that as moms, we try to take on everything ourselves and figure it all out ourselves. And a lot of times it's not about like reinventing the wheel. It's just like a phone call, or maybe there really isn't the help that we need. And then it's like, well, if we come together, we're more likely to get it done together versus like one of us trying to take on the world.
Yeah.
I started Inclusion Clubhouse, and my long-term vision is to have a recreational center that's all inclusive for the whole family, where we have support groups for parents, where we have support groups for siblings, because a lot of times the siblings feel neglected. Like the other sibling is getting all the attention and they're not getting any attention, their needs aren't being met, and then they get very resentful and angry, and then they have their own issues going through. And really providing like a community where parents can talk to other parents about what's going on, where the siblings can maybe talk to other siblings who are going through the same stuff that maybe they wouldn't meet because, you know, they have their own friends at school, but most of their friends don't deal with the same things that they deal with. And so my current board president, her son has autism. And my first intern last year is an 18-year-old from one of the high schools who's on the spectrum. And I learned so much from her. It was just insane. Like, her and my daughter became best friends, and my daughter doesn't speak. And so she became like a mouthpiece for my daughter. And just seeing that was like, oh my God. And like, she'll tell me, you know, for my daughter's Sweet 16, we created a special needs family prom that we put on every year. Obviously with COVID, we haven't really done like our events. Like her 21st birthday, we created Love Cello, which is our version of Coachella. So special needs events has been our big thing. And so Dorothy, who is her best friend, who's on the spectrum, like really just gets her, where I'm her mom and I'm assuming what she needs. Like, I'm just assuming what she wants. And it was so interesting to have her friends say, she's not a baby. She's not a kid. Like, cause I'm like, I call her baby. Like, she's still my little girl, even though she's 23, because she's still mentally a little kid. And she's like, we don't do play dates anymore. Can we call them hangouts? And then can we not call it the special needs family prom? Can it be like the inclusion prom? Like, just really like letting me know, hey, like, we're adults, we're young adults, we want to be treated that way. And just because we may not be vocal or whatever, like, we still want you to know, hey. And it's so funny because every time she would speak, my daughter would be like, yeah. And I was like, oh, got it. Duly noted.
That's good.
So
it's
that's
good.
A little bit of my background and how I got here and my journey. And so any questions that you guys have? Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. The Inclusion Clubhouse, definitely, y'all should check that out, you know, on Facebook. It's definitely, you know, it's a very inspiring thing. Nikki, I want to go back to you about, what was it, TACA, the TACA organization. Can you kind of inform me a little about that?
Sure. So TACA is a nonprofit out of California that started about 20 years ago. And when I was early on in my journey, I found this organization, and it was the first time, like I told you, I'm in the medical profession. So when my son regressed and I went back to my colleagues and said, hey, my kid was speaking and now he's not speaking. And hey, my kid could feed himself and now he couldn't feed himself. I was kind of told, oh, it's the luck of the draw. It's what happens. These kids with autism, they regress. So that wasn't good enough for me. Like I said, Michael's my youngest of 4, and I saw my child completely developmentally appropriate until he wasn't anymore. And TACA was the first website that I found that addressed some of the underlying causes that cause children to sometimes regress. We know that there are some genetic causes of autism, and we know that some kids, you can identify autism in them as early as 6 months old, but there's this other subset of kids who have these regressions. So through TACA, which is the Autism Community in Action, I learned a lot about the medical side of autism. And that was very inspiring for me. It was the first time I had received any mission of hope for my child. So as I said, when they're 2 and 3 years old and they're diagnosed, you don't know if at 12 they'll be potty trained, if they'll make a sandwich, if they'll read a book, if they'll count money. You have no idea. And they're like, just take them to therapy and hope for the best. And TACA gave me a little bit of a different approach, like, hey, some of these kids have some underlying medical causes, and when addressed, they thrive. And, kids who are non-speaking sometimes will start to use language, and kids who, may have been receptively unable to understand start to have a little bit more cognition. And so being a nurse and being in healthcare, I took that information and ran with it, and would show up in the doctor's offices with 5 and 15 studies saying, we need to try this. We need to run this test. And, the doctors would express their apprehension in doing it, but I was persistent. And lo and behold, many of the things that I learned through them, through the doctors that, sit on their board and the conferences that they have, I was able to address a lot of the medical causes that were causing my son to have meltdowns more frequently, to not be able to fall asleep at night, to improve his expressive and his receptive language. And so I've been the Massachusetts volunteer for that organization, coordinator for that organization for the last 4 years. And so I help families all over Massachusetts and host events and support groups.
That's wonderful. I started following up on that, and hold on one second here.
I tell you what, though, persistence is key.
Yes, it is.
Persistence is key, especially in the autism community. It's very key that you have to be persistent, because these doctors are very reluctant. I had to fight to get the test, and like Nikki said,
I think that in this community, definitely you have to fight, because if you don't, like, they're going to sweep you under the rug. It's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil type of thing. And, with special needs in general, regardless of what the disability is, it's that same. And the crazy thing is everyone assumes that you're getting access and that you have the resources that you need. They're like, oh, they don't have something for that. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
They did. I wouldn't be looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had I was kind of scanning and looking through all kinds of stuff, listening to different podcasts over throughout the past week, and one of the most disturbing ones that I came across was the government, the Department of Defense, was actually trying to stop military families from getting the assistance, especially with kids in the spectrum, families in the spectrum, that they're actually doing research, gathering data to bring to Congress to stop a lot of the programs that the especially with autism, and they're actually trying to stop all those programs, and it's moved forward to Congress. They're still looking into it, but could you imagine the Department of Defense?
There was a point in time, ask Nikki, that they were cutting our children's services at school, and we had to put up a fight with that too. That's the first thing that they cut. Special needs students are the first cut that they make all the time, and it's horrible. So so when we say we have to fight, we have to fight.
Yeah,
every last thing.
And we didn't intend for it to be that way, right? Like we're here, we're in the city, and we have rapport with with the elementary schools like that, our kids are going to, with the principals. And, unfortunately, you get into a situation where you're having to be assertive and call them out on, their rights being violated, because when they're in school on an IEP, they have legal rights, and the school has a legal obligation to uphold their end. And, I had a teacher tell me straight out, well, we didn't tell you, but if you asked, I wouldn't lie to you. So
yeah,
it's kind of that's what we deal with, on a regular basis. A lot of the stuff we don't get told unless we ask, and it's always an uphill battle. Once we
That's
think we're
why,
making progress, it just, you know.
and that's why I'm very confident that you ladies will be, the parent, the advocate, and the champion for your child. And I definitely want to preach to that. That don't just. Sometimes you need help, but always be that strong advocate for your child, because you know people will slip things by you. And if you're not an advocate, you're not going to know. You let it rely on other people. They're not going to be looking for the things that you kind of talk to the clinician about, or someone else about. Someone that's just kind of you know just half stepping and putting the hours in. So continue to do what you're doing, and I really want you guys to you know continue to educate me, because on a daily basis I am with autistic children, and I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn me something today, as my friend Mr. John Clark says. I'm just trying to learn something, and I really want to get better. Here's another parent here. I want to mention it. This is another woman that kind of needs support, and but is I was amazed how she is Mandy. It's very it's very much a love and hate relationship when it comes to the school system. And Mandy, I want to let you know that you see these women here on the screen. Make sure that you reach out, and because you guys are not alone. You're not alone. Speak to someone. And Mandy is definitely a person that's gonna speak up for her children. And so, Linda, I want to talk to you about out there in the West Coast. How's it going out there? As far as you know, do you get strong support there, or is it still something that you have to seek and find
It,
what you possibly need?
yeah, it's definitely something where you have to be an advocate and you have to speak up. If you don't don't ask, don't tell is definitely so. It was hard, especially the older my daughter got. It got even harder, more difficult, and it was always a battle to make sure that she was included as far as her education is concerned, and
Sure.
to make sure that she was getting the best education possible given her situation and her circumstances. And so one thing I did was I got on a committee called the Community Advisory Committee, and it was for LAUSD because we live in the LA area. And so I sat on the board. I was part of the one of the advisors. So I sat on, it's a big community advisory committee, and I started as just part of the community, and then I was made sure I was on the board, and we are the ones who help write the SELPA, which is the law that goes into place that says what the kids are entitled to in the schools. And I found that it wasn't until I was sitting in those rooms where I could really see what was happening and the politics behind it all, and how difficult it really is to make sure that your kids are getting the services that they need when they need them. Also, the difference in the minority communities and the services that the minorities were getting versus the white community. It was just the numbers were ridiculous. Kids who had autism being suspended for behaviors that obviously they couldn't control, and just dumb, obviously they have to put rules in place, but we were really fighting for hey, these are special circumstances. Are you looking at this? Are you looking at these different, do they have the behavioral assistance that they need in the classroom? Do they have the supports they need? Do the teachers know how to respond to certain situations? And, fighting for training and in the classroom, and the type of teachers, because a lot of our students with autism are in general ed, and they have maybe a resource assistant that helps them. So making sure that they were getting the right type of help and were in the right type of classroom for their particular IEP, for their situation. So yeah, definitely out here, it's the same struggle. Like, I think
And
everyone goes through it, and that's why I said that it's really important to have that strong support group with parents. And with the community advisory committee, it was all parents. A majority had special needs kids on different, different disabilities, from autism to cerebral palsy to Down syndrome. And then we also had parents who had typical kids in general ed. And it was a collaborative of how do we make this work for everyone. And it, like you lady said, it takes a village, and it really does. And that knowing that there's someone that you can call, that there's someone you can reach out to, that you're not alone. And it doesn't all have to be an uphill battle, which is why we created our events, because we're like, okay, our kids need to have fun, the parents need to have fun, and then it also builds a sense of community where they get to know each other and they get to see each other in like a different light, and it's not always such a hardship, because I think that that's important. Like, self-care is huge. That's another thing that we stress to our parents. It's like self-care, even if it's like 10 minutes or a half hour in the tub by yourself, quiet time, like no interruptions, which sometimes is really hard for us. Like 10 minutes in the closet sometimes is what I used to get.
True.
When you got 4 kids, it's like so hard to find time for yourself. But you have to prioritize yourself, because if you're not healthy, you can't take care of anyone else.
Exactly. Mika, your child's going to a new school district, so are you prepared for what's going to happen, what's offered to you and your child in that new district?
Well, he is entering high school, and middle school was a little different, but I am aware of everything that's offered and what he is supposed to get. So, I will be in communications with the school, and I will be, trust me, they'll know my face up in that school. Better believe that they will know who I am up in there, because I will, I make it very clear.
You got your own podcast, so guess what? You can just throw it out there,
Put it right on
and then
blast,
Yeah, put it on blast, and then I'll add to it. I'll put it on the Really Charlie podcast, and we'll go after them.
Every growing step with a child with autism is a scary thing for a parent. And I say that because we're stepping into a pool that we don't know the temperature in. It could be ice cold or extremely hot or just right. So I'm really, really nervous, but my son has come a very long way from them telling me he's never going to talk into him being, a regular teenager. And it's an amazing journey for me. And so this stepping into high school, trust me, I cried like a baby earlier. Because, not only is, he's my baby, but, just the things that we've been through to get to the steps. And I think every autism parent has that point where you see your child make even the smallest achievement is the biggest sigh of relief, and it's one of the happiest things in your life. And with this being accepted to a vocational school, which they were saying is very hard to get in, and all this, this is a child they said that wouldn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
They said that wouldn't progress. Here he is, reading at his age level, writing at his age level, comprehending, just being his age level. He still has his struggles, but we work on it every day, and that's a part of the journey.
Well, you got to put that personality in place, right in front and center, in front of the teachers and the administration for your son, because. Well, I mean, I'm talking about you, but I'm actually talking about your son. You get him there, Actually, we could do some live weatherman reports, because they
Oh
like
man,
the
I don't
neat.
know if I'm pretty sure Nikki's seen the weatherman, but but
So,
he's coming to his own, and the ability to be vocalized like he is has been it's just been amazing for me to watch. People don't understand. I get so emotional because I've seen from babble to cussing me out, so
mhm.
and just having a normal conversation. Whereas 3 years ago he couldn't conversate with people. He couldn't even look people
Yeah.
in the eye. Now he's just having conversations, meeting people, making new friends, and it's the joy of it. That's the joy. There are downs, but I don't ever look at the downs. I always look at the joy of autism in my life.
What you gonna do when
Always.
he brings his boo home?
Oh no. Listen, he already talked about it. He already talked about it, and he has he has a big brother, so he's gonna follow in
Yeah.
his big brother's footsteps, and that's a
Well.
conversation. Oh yeah. But you know what? I have older
See
ones, so I'm
what
kind of prepared.
what you were supposed to say is really Charlie.
Well, yeah, really, Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's it's kind of all right, Nikki. We're gonna go back to you and talk about some of the highlights of your wonderful children. All of you have wonderful children, and so what are some of the highlights that you shared with your child?
With Michael is an amazing athlete. One of the things about kids with autism is that they sometimes can lack that gauge for safety. And this kid happens to have, that gymnastics gene that my dad passed
Mm.
on down, and my husband was an athlete too, gymnast and um, basketball player, and soccer player. So he kind of has it instinctively. So he does all kind of tricks and 360 jumps and attempts all types of moves. So that's a huge, highlight for him. We actually just started a little Instagram channel for him. So he is now getting his little notoriety because he's into that, and asking, did anybody, I get any new followers? Did anybody like my video? Which is great because Michael really wants to be communicative, and his receptive language is on par. So you can speak to him and he understands what you're saying, but expressively he has a little bit of a deficit. So now he's starting to use social media and wanting to interact, and he uses a voice command, and he can get some of those sentences out where, you know, it's not me prompting him all the time, say this and say that.
Yeah.
Some of the other highlights for Michael is that through the biomedical interventions that we've been able to do by, like I said, addressing those underlying causes that were holding him back, he's thriving, and he's gaining developmental years quicker than what we had seen in the past. So, he probably gained about, 2 years of development in the last year. And that's just by, kind of going after those things that are holding him back medically. And then, my other kids, they are a great support to Michael. They're so much older than him. It's like, 3 other adults in the house always directing him and guiding him. And it's great because he uses that communication on his siblings, and don't tell me what to do, and you're not the mom and you're not the dad. And so yeah, I'm grateful that he has them around
That's good.
to push him along.
Yeah, having family
What?
that is supportive is great. I love it. There's nothing like it.
Good. The you know, why don't you actually, Linda, share some highlights about your child, and we'll go to Mika, and then I have another part that I want to get into.
Sure. Well, I just wanna say you ladies are doing an amazing job. with your kids, and you know, walking that journey with them, and not letting it defeat you. That in and of itself is amazing, because a lot of times, like, I've spoken to a lot of parents who are at their wits' end, who don't know what to do anymore, and just like want to throw in the towel. So, I think it's amazing that you fight for your kids, and that, you walk the path with him, both with them. Um, so that's amazing. And,
Good.
this is a journey that everyone, is struggling with. It's like autism is at such an all-time high. It's just crazy that these numbers just keep growing, versus like finding solutions, and now the numbers are going down. So I commend you ladies. And my journey is different but similar, because my daughter doesn't have autism, but I do have so many, like I said, my board president, her son has autism. I have lots of friends who have children with autism through the organization. My daughter's best friend, Dorothy. So with my daughter, it's been she teaches me something every day. And even though,
Yeah.
like, she's nonverbal, she doesn't have work. Basically, she's like a baby. So everyone's like, well, how do you communicate? I'm like, well, how do you communicate with a baby? Like, when they cry, you feed them, or you check their diaper, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, you just go down the list of what could it be? What time did she eat? When did she go to the bathroom last? Let me check her diaper. Let me see if she's hungry. Is something bothering her? It's like, that's it. It's like a guessing game. Sometimes she has like cues, like, if she's chewing her tongue, I'm like, oh my God, is she hungry? Is it time to eat? What time did she eat last? All right, let me give her a snack. If she's just fussing, maybe she just wants attention and she wants you to hang out with her. And then if you sit with her and she's like cool and she's hugging you, you're like, okay, she just wanted attention. Let me chill and hang out with her. And, it's been a guessing game. But like, one thing that she has taught me so much is just to be grateful, because she is happy all the time. And it doesn't matter that she can't walk. It doesn't matter that she can't talk. Like, life to her is an adventure, and even though it's fully dependent on me, which is why I have done, tried to do so much with the organization for her, because she's such a social butterfly. And there isn't a lot, because people look at her as though she can't do anything because she's fully dependent on someone else. And it's like, well, we got to worry more about the kids who have more potential, who are more physically capable of doing things. And the one thing I've learned with all of the kids that I've come in contact with is, they want to be loved, and they want to be able to at least try, to do what everyone else is doing. Even if they can't do it like everyone else, they just want to be given the opportunity to be able to do what everyone else is doing. And that's been the big thing for me with my daughter, is just whatever I can to help her live her best life to the best of her ability. And as long as I know that I'm trying, then that's all I can do. I used to beat myself up all the time. Like, nothing I did was ever enough. It was never enough. Like, and as a mom, you burn yourself out, trying to fix everything. And a lot of times there isn't anything to fix. You just have to accept that it is what it is. Not in all circumstances, obviously, not in every situation, but in some situations you have to, like, just stop beating yourself up and, just say, did I do the best that I could? And if the answer is yes, then you got to pause and leave it at that, and just be like, okay, what's next?
Exactly. Thank you very much. I like this. I'm really proud of this podcast, and it's got a lot to do with you guys, and this information that you're giving to me, the viewers, and I really appreciate this. Mika, you have you have a busy schedule, very busy. You're working full time. You're trying to do the best you can. Is I like the part. I like one thing about you, and that's your podcast, and that when you're on the podcast, there's no filter. And as a parent, going to advocate for your child, you sometimes can't have that filter. You really got to hit them where it hurts sometimes. And
You have to be
I'm
real
just
vocal.
yeah. And the now, could you tell me something? The clinicians that your child had in the other district, are they going to follow your son to
Um,
another district? How does that work? Which would you?
well, because of COVID, our IEP meeting, for his transition to high school was a little different. Depending on what high school he is in, if he went to New Bedford High, a lot of the therapists and stuff would follow. But there was only one that's going to follow him into.
Okay.
Cameron no longer has a one-on-one because he has exceeded his expectations, and that was my decision. He is integrated into regular classes.
Awesome.
So that makes kind of the transition a little better for him.
That's so great.
And
That's awesome.
so I just will probably have somebody there. Obviously I have one person there, but that will always watch him. But it isn't his IEP to have not so much a one-on-one, but someone in the classroom for guidance if he needs it in high school. So,
Okay,
I'm
good.
trying to let him be very independent. It's hard when you see a child always needing somebody for so long, and now he's coming to that point where he doesn't need anyone, and it's a scary thing, but I'm letting him do it. He's going to be getting
Right.
a driver's permit pretty soon, so yeah, I know, Nicole.
Ah.
It's a blessing to see it, because at the beginning I didn't think that would be possible for him. I didn't think anything that
Awesome.
he's doing today would be possible. And one of his teachers messaged me today and was like, "You announced that he's going to high school and he's going to vote." She said she cried. I said, I was crying too. I said, I'm crying because I'm losing my baby. But I am very proud, and I'm crying because of the great thing. The thing. People don't understand unless you've been in our shoes. You won't understand the joy that we feel when anything like that takes place.
Awesome. We're gonna stay with Mika, and we got about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What I want you to do is, what kind of message could you give? Do you want to give to the parents out there, the listeners, the viewers? What message would you give to them as far as being, an autistic advocate, autistic parent, whatever it may be? And I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. I don't want to say anything, that upsets anybody, but I just want you to reach out to make things autistic awareness or autism awareness. What would you do? The advice? What would you give them? And then we're going to kind of go from, to Mika to Nikki and then to Linda, and I'll pretty much wrap up our podcast.
My biggest advice to any parent that's at the beginning stages, or they're just getting that diagnosis, fight the good fight and never give up. Never give up on your child, never give up on yourself, and never give up on your system around you. Because believe it or not, sometimes we may not feel like it, but the system is there to help us. You just got to fight for that help. Just never, my biggest motto is just never give up at all. Never.
Good. What about you, Nikki?
So my advice is to First, get involved with TACA, because the resources that are available, outside of the medical stuff, they help with IEP stuff. They just have so much information for parents to learn and, take advantage of what you've learned and be a strong advocate and be able to go out there and utilize that information. So don't be afraid to speak to the teacher or speak to the principal or speak to the adjustment counselor in the school about the things that you've learned and the questions that you may have that arise from the information that's out there. One of the biggest things I found is that, with that, kind of no prognosis that they give you, people will sit back and kind of just wait. They'll go to all the therapies and they're just, kind of going with the flow. To be a parent to a child with special needs in general and autism, you have to really be assertive. You really have to become a teacher. You have to become a medical advocate. You have to become a therapist in your home, and that's a psychological therapist and an ABA therapist or, floor time therapist, whatever therapies you prefer, but you kind of have to become an expert in all those areas in order to thoroughly advocate for your kids. I love that TACA organization because they also have an online Facebook group of Hope and Help where you can go and you can pose all of those questions that you have. And, there's thousands of people there ready to share their answers, parents just like you. So getting involved and, if you have that kind of passive personality where you kind of shake and nod, get a little fire in you and, practice, having those conversations at home and finding that balance of giving that assertiveness without, being rude, because you have to take that persona on in order to get your kids what they need.
Awesome. And that site was www.taca.org.
TACA now,
please.
NOW.org, TACAnow.org.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to fix that. All right. I really appreciate it. I need you guys to keep pushing. We're gonna use this podcast to get autistic information out there to everybody. So, and Linda, what advice do you have as a parent, to the people that are out there?
Well, I just want to say that you know your child better than anybody. So no matter what the doctors say, what the therapists say, what anybody says, you are with your child like 10 times more than they are. So I just say never give up. And where there's a will, there's a way, and just believe and, fight for what you believe they need. And if you may see something that they don't see, and vice versa. Sometimes, like, even with my daughter, like, they're telling me like, oh, she's doing this in school and she's doing that, and I'm like, really? I can't get her to do none of that at home. Like, they my husband babies my daughter. I don't. I'm like, girl, I know what you can do. I heard from the teachers, so you gonna do it for me too. And you have to be that mouthpiece. And your kid, when they're manipulating the situation and they just don't want to do it. And you definitely have to have that fight in you. It's not a let me just, poke them in the back and be like, hey, yeah, so you can't be a mouse. You have to really, and I know me, like, being from back east and being Cape Verdean, and like nope, that's not working. Listen, something right here. And so just, I echo what the other ladies say. Moms are in the trenches, and what it takes, and what your child needs, and just, it's out there. And if it's not out, like, I couldn't find what I needed. So I was like, I'm going to start something, and I'm going to create it, and I'm going to build it. And I know if I build it, they're going to come, because it's needed. Because if I'm looking for it, I know other people are looking for it. you know.
Mhm.
So we just have to be here for each other and support each other in whatever ways needed. But know that there's help out there, and just fight for what you believe, and you know your child better than anybody. And thank you, Charlie. Thank you for helping us raise awareness and getting the word out there, and really wanting, asking the tough questions, and really wanting to help spread the word. I mean, when I moved out to California, TACO is definitely one of the organizations I looked into, even though my daughter didn't have autism, but I was just like, maybe she does. She was 4. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, I was still searching for answers, and I was just talking to everybody and anybody, whether they was telling me she had cerebral palsy, whether they were saying she might have autism, whether she was just developmentally delayed, you know she wasn't quite having seizures at that time. So I was just looking for answers, and if you look, eventually you're going to find them. So so
Great.
thank you for getting that out there for us, Charlie.
All right. Man, you guys, everything I expected that was going to come out of this podcast did. And we're definitely probably missing some things here or there. Only because autism, autism just it's complex. You gotta. There's so much information out there. There's so much things that you have to have an understanding for. And I'm learning because someone puts their child in my hands every day. I got to make sure that my buddy, my friend, that's what I call him, my buddy, my friend, is safe every day. So I'm living and learning, and I really appreciate. I'm not trying to push anything on you guys, but please, if you all could kind of meet up, hook up, whether it's through Facebook, and hook up, because if all 3 of you are working together, you're going to help out many, many people. So please hook up and become friends, and as you guys know how to.
And to anybody who's watching, my inbox is always open. Always, always open. Anybody
Yep.
need help, anything, my inbox is always open.
Yes.
Yeah, same here.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and please, anything you have, just share it to the Really Charlie podcast group on Facebook, or send it to me, and just I'll put the link on. We're gonna push this because you're a guest. You have that free. You have that free access to it. I'm gonna push everything that you sent to me, only because I'm very confident of you guys and what you're pushing and what you're supporting. So if you send something to me, I'm gonna actually put it on the page, and then I'm gonna share it, and you know, so anything, fundraisers, anything you're doing, let me know.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
And thank you. In about probably 30 days, I'm gonna try to do this again. You're all welcome, no matter what. And if you want to push the subject matter or what we're gonna talk about pertaining to 1 or 2 things with autism, let me know, and then we'll stick with that. And I'll let one of you lead, whatever, but I'm going to continue to do this and invite other people to be on, to speak about it also. So,
Thank you.
Great.
No
all
problem.
right.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate you,
you.
all 3 of you. All right. Thank you.
Have
Awesome.
a good
It was nice.
night.
5 stars to all 3 of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank
All
Thank you,
right.
you. Have a good one.
Good night.
Have a good night. Good night.
Good night.
Can't get any better than that. 1, 2, 3 top guest. I'm so happy. It's definitely what I expected, as I just mentioned. And autism is real. Autism is something that we have to pay attention to, even if it's not affecting your family. It might be your child's friend. It may be your friend's child. We gotta kind of push it as much as we can and make sure that people are aware of it. April was Autism Awareness Month, but I don't want to. It's just like Black History Month. I don't want it to be just kind of pinpointed on one month. I want it to be constant, year round, 365 days, constantly talk about it, and because someone needs you every day. All right. Thank you for the support, listening and viewing. The comments are unbelievable. You all need a great hand. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to try to answer whatever I can. And I'm telling you firsthand that I love all of them. You're all going to get hearts on those comments because they were definitely on point. On point. You showed some knowledge of what y'all are going through, and I really, really appreciate it. And Mandy, this broadcast wasn't long enough. It really wasn't. But, people have time, have schedules. So that's why we're going to do it. We're going to do this more often. And so if you have any comment, suggestion, please send me a message and I'll work on it. But Autism podcasts are going to continue. And I'm going to try to do it probably once or twice a month, every 2 months, once or every 2 months. But I'm definitely going to get it out there. Thank you, everyone. God bless. And hey, Mike, Nikki, we're going to do this, man. Thank you. Linda, appreciate you. Mika, tops, always there. I really, really appreciate y'all. 5 stars, as I said. Tune in to the Really Charlie podcast on StreamYard, Anchor, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. Support me on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. It has all these wonderful, wonderful podcasts for you. Help a brother out. Mask those beautiful faces. Hand sanitize, wash your hands. Stay safe. God bless. Be blessed. Stay blessed. I love y'all. Take care.